You can come on in and have a seat. They just stand and make yourself comfortable. Open courtroom, always has been open. Come on in. Doors open. Come and go as you please. Court reporters adjusting the mic. Come on back up, Miss Archer, right? You can come on and have a seat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. You may be seated in any seat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Everyone should have a seat. All right, lawyers and parties, you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for returning in a timely fashion. I think somebody had a little challenge of being in place by 1:30, but I appreciate you getting here when you do. 1:30 actually means 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. All right. Deputy Gale, let's swear in again since we're broke from lunch, sir.
Right here. You solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and the truth, except God. Please take the spelling name for the record.
Samantha Archer Wright, SAMANTHACHER-WRIGHT.
That's right. I just have one or two more questions for you. Directing your attention to the end of the year of 2010, do you recall Mrs. Sneiderman's emotional state at that time?
She was still very sad and tearful.
Do you know whether or not, once you cut back on your nanny duties with the Sneidermans, whether they hired someone else to assist? And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. Did they hire a second nanny, if you know?
Oh, during the time that I cut back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, ma'am. I have no other questions.
Ms. Hill, I believe this is your witness. You may
Yes,
proceed
thank you.
if you wish.
Very briefly, Judge.
Ask as many questions as you wish.
Good afternoon, Ms. Archer Wright.
Hi.
I have a couple questions for you. How many times would you say you actually had a conversation with the defendant outside of your nanny responsibilities?
Like when I was not there or while I was there?
Well, either while you were there or not, but anything that was unrelated to, say, the fact that you were serving as a nanny for her and her husband.
Oh, all the time.
And how often did the two of you take walks on Sundays?
We didn't take any walks.
How often did the two of you go out, just the two of you, and have lunch?
Not just the two of us, no.
How often did the two of you just have girl talk?
Anytime I was there.
And how often did she share with you the intimate details of her life?
Intimate, like personal?
Correct.
With her and Rusty, per se?
Yes.
How intimate?
Well, that will be for you to answer.
Maybe something general, going on a vacation or things of the sort.
General, going on vacation, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't discuss the details of their marital relationship, did she?
No.
And she didn't discuss when they were or were not having difficulties in the marriage with you, did she?
No.
And your relationship with her was simply one where you came and you were actually employed by her and her husband, correct?
But we still engage in conversation, and
Absolutely.
it was more than just like I'm there working.
But you were in the house,
Mm-hmm.
so the two of you did talk.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't share intimate details about her life with you.
Not like, yeah, completely intimate.
Right, right. She didn't confide in you, did she, about things that were going on in her marital relationship?
No.
Thank you very much, Ms. Archer Wright.
Mr. Clegg, any recross?
Are you a nurse, ma'am?
Yes.
When did you graduate from nursing school?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Mr. Clegg?
Yeah, I expect let me approach because I don't want to...
Sure. Oh, yeah. Come on up, lawyer. All right, I'll overrule the objection. You may ask your question, sir, or as many as you wish.
Ms. Archer Wright, when did you actually graduate from nursing school?
August 2011.
Okay. And did Andrea Sneiderman attend your nursing school graduation?
She did.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing further.
Any redirect?
No, you-
All right, lawyers, may Ms. Archer Wright be released and excused from her subpoena?
no objection from the state.
Certainly, Your Honor.
All right. Have a good day, young lady. Drive safely. Call your next witness, Mr. Clegg,
Your
or
Honor, the
whoever.
defense would call Alyssa Redmond to the witness stand.
All right. Ms. Clegg, is someone retrieving Ms.
Oh,
Redmond?
I don't, I'm not. I will go do so, Your Honor.
Okay.
I thought one of my co-counsel here could assist.
Well, since they didn't move, I figured they weren't honoring your request. Okay. You come on up, young lady, follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett.
Turn around, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. May go you can. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Alyssa Redmond, ALYSSA REDMON.
Redmond, do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes,
Do you see her here in this courtroom here today?
I do.
Could you point her out for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and tell us what she's wearing?
She's right here. She is wearing a brown cardigan with a striped top.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman.
The record may so reflect.
How is it that you know Mrs. Sneiderman?
I was their nanny.
Okay. And when is it you would have been her nanny, ma'am?
October 2010 to November.
How often during that period of time, well, let me ask you this. When you were the nanny for the Mrs. Sneiderman, was her husband, Rusty Sneiderman, alive?
Yes,
And would you go to their home in Dunwoody to perform whatever task you were required to perform?
yes,
How many times a week would you have been going to the house during that period of time?
twice.
And how many hours a day would you have been working at the house on those two occasions that you would go a week?
3 to 4 hours each day.
Did you have what time typically would you go from when to when?
4 to 7 or 4 to 8.
During that particular time, to your knowledge, was Rusty Sneiderman employed outside of the home?
Not outside of the home.
Was he at the home frequently when you would have been present?
Yes,
Was Mrs. Sneiderman during that particular time employed outside of the home?
yes,
Would there be times when she would be present while you were there as well?
yes.
Typically, do you recall what time Andrea Sneiderman would usually get home during the period of time that you were working as a nanny for the Sneidermans?
5 or 5:30.
And did you then have occasion to see the two of them interact with one another during that period of time up until you would have left?
Yes.
Can you describe the interaction you would have seen between Andrea Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman back in October and November of 2010?
I would see them in the home with the children at dinner.
Come a little closer to the microphone,
I
okay?
apologize. I would see them at home at dinner with the kids. They seemed very happy and loved. There was nothing that seemed out of the ordinary.
Did you notice any sort of tension between the two of them?
Never.
Did you notice any sort of fighting between the two of them?
Never.
Did you notice either one of them giving each other the silent treatment?
No.
What typically would be your responsibilities while you were at the household?
My responsibilities were to cook, make lunch for the children the next day, clean up the playrooms, clean up the house, so that they could spend time together and with the children.
So did you do the domestic chores while they spent time with their kids?
Correct.
And with each other?
Yes.
And was that a typical schedule, or was that a typical, what you did, was that typical of your time with them as a nanny?
Yes.
At some point, did Mrs. Sneiderman discuss with you the possibility of doing additional work for her beyond being a nanny?
Yes.
Were you given, what were you told that was going to entail?
I would be doing computer work for her more as a consultant after I graduated from college.
Were you in college at that time?
I was.
When were you to graduate?
December 2010.
And did you in fact graduate in 2010 in December?
I did.
Okay. Did Mrs. Sneiderman ever, did you have a scheduled meeting with Mrs. Sneiderman to set up training for the second position that she was going to offer you?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance.
Ms. Clegg?
Your Honor, I believe that meeting would have been on November the 17th, and I believe that meeting was subsequently set up for November the 19th.
All right.
The subject of the meeting is not as
I
important as
understand.
the dates.
I overrule the objection. You
Okay.
may go ahead with it.
Okay. Was the date of that scheduled meeting initially for November the 17th, 2010?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall whether that meeting actually went forward at that, let me ask you this, would it have been on the 7th, would it have been on the, what day of the week
It
was
was
that
the
meeting?
Tuesday.
Okay. If Rusty died on the 18th, a Thursday, would that have
In
been
the
the
16th.
16th?
Yes.
Okay. Was that meeting canceled?
Yes.
Do you recall what time you would have left the Sneiderman household on that evening?
The typical time, so between 7 and 8.
Okay. Do you recall when the meeting was rescheduled until?
It was rescheduled for the Thursday evening, so November the 18th.
Would that have been November the 18th?
Yes.
Was that the day that Rusty Sneiderman wound up being shot and killed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any conversation with Mrs. Sneiderman on the 16th as to why she needed to cancel the meeting on that day?
Yes.
What did she tell you, ma'am?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the
Relevance.
objection?
Relevance.
Okay. That's fine, Judge.
And it's also hearsay.
I understand. I gotta sustain that objection at this time. Go ahead.
Okay. How did you find out that Rusty Sneiderman had been shot?
I received a phone call from a woman telling me that there had
Objection, Your
been,
Honor, as to the hearsay.
Maybe you said you received a phone call from a woman?
yes.
Was that woman Mrs. Snyderman?
No, it was
All
not.
right, I sustain that objection.
Did you at some point find out that he had been shot?
Yes.
Did you have further contact with them, or did you work further for them as a nanny after that particular day?
I did not.
Okay. Did you have occasion yourself to go over to their house?
I did not.
Okay. You said something about October was when you were initially hired. Do you recall, was it early October, late October, or when?
I believe it was early October.
Okay. Did you ever have occasion to have contact with Rusty about Star voicemail?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was Andrea familiar with the details of Star voicemail? And if you know, great. If you don't.
I do not know.
Let me just look at my notes.
Oh, you may.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Are you currently living in the Atlanta area, ma'am?
I am not.
Okay. And going back again to the period of time that you would have spent with Mr. and Mrs. Sneiderman, was there anything at all out of the ordinary that you observed about their relationship?
Not at all.
Good enough, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Whose witness is this?
It's
Ms.
my
Hill?
witness, Your Honor. I have no questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Lawyers, may Ms. Redmond be released and excused from her subpoena? Mr. Clegg?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. I'm sorry, you said, wait a minute, are you ready? Can she go? Ms. Clegg? Is that yes?
Yes, yes, she
Okay.
can go, Judge.
No
Hill?
objection from the state.
Thank you, young lady. Have a good day. Have a safe trip. Call your next witness. Mr. Who's doing the witness?
Call Maura Barandiaran, please,
All
Your
right.
Honor. I will go get her.
All right. You can come on up, young lady, follow the instructions of the deputy.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may go and you may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Maura Barandiaran. M-A-R-A is the first name. B is in boy. A-R. A-N is in Nancy. D-I-A-R-A-N.
Ms. Petrie, she's with you.
Thank you. So Barandiaran is spelled the regular way.
The regular way, that's right.
Ma'am,
No
do you
deviation.
know Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
How do you know her, please, ma'am?
I met Andrea in 2009 at my parents' home in Lake Oconee.
Okay. And what were the circumstances of your meeting Mrs. Sneiderman, please?
They came over, Rusty and Andrea came over. I actually met Rusty initially. I was walking out the door, he was walking in.
And again, this was not your home, this was your
That's
parents'
correct.
home?
That's right.
What are your parents' names, please?
It's my stepmother, Bonnie Van Fleet, and my father is Jerry Joseph.
Okay. And please tell us the circumstances upon first meeting Rusty and Andrea. And if you met them one and then the other, split it up.
Like I said, I met Rusty initially, and we had a little bit of small talk. I think that my parents had some communication with Rusty and Andrea about my husband and myself and our kids, because our kids are the same age as Rusty and Andrea's. So we made a little bit of small talk, and then Andrea pulled in on the boat. She was driving the boat, and she had her son Ian sitting on the boat as well. So, we just hit it off right away.
Do you recall what part, I think you said the summer of 2009?
Yes. It might have been May,
Okay.
perhaps June.
I don't know what, to me, summer, even though not technically, summer is sort of Memorial Day to Labor Day, and I'm not sure that that is what the scientists say, but is it that period of time that
Basically.
you're talking about? Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, Mrs. Barandiaran, and I'm going to triple,
You could say Miss B.
how often prior to the late fall of 2010, how many times do you think that you yourself had the occasion to be with and observe Mrs. Sneiderman with or without Rusty?
It was mostly together and with the kids. It was practically every weekend. If I think about it over the course of time, I would say maybe 20 to 30 times.
And just to be sure, am I correct in my belief that the families would not, neither your family nor her family would have been out on the boats as much during the wintertime, during school time?
That's correct. That's a fair statement.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you will, please, madam, how you interacted with Rusty and Andrea during that time.
Excuse me, what time are we talking about now? We still
The
in 2000?
Summer
we
of
still in
2009, summer of 2010, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. It was really the typical things we always did. They would come over to my father's home, and it was almost like, I think, their home away from home. We would get on the boats. Sometimes initially we would text ahead of time if we were going to be there. Are you going to be at the lake this weekend? And coordinate things that way. And sometimes my husband and I would just jump on the boat and head over to their house without even notifying them.
Okay.
But yeah, we spent a lot of time on the boat, and we had a pool, so they came over to our place quite a bit.
Okay. They poached your poop.
They did.
Okay.
It's okay.
Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you observed, not what your opinion is, not what your inner thoughts were, but what you actually observed about the interaction of Mrs. Sneiderman, Andrea Sneiderman, and Rusty? What you yourself saw. How did they appear to be interacting with each other?
Your Honor, I object to...
What's the objection?
I object to the question based on relevance if we're still talking about the 09 timeframe.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you give me a time frame, Mr. Petrie.
Okay, for the summer of 2009 and the summer of 2010, those are really the times that you were with them, correct?
Mm-hmm. That would be right. And I would say,
Okay, just don't answer the question.
Go ahead and answer the question. That's the time frame, 2009 and 2010.
Yes, sir. During the summer of each.
Correct.
That's fine.
Not at the lake at Christmas.
No, but occasionally. I would, initially meeting them, there are a couple like all the other couples that we hang out with.
Did you understand his question?
About the relationship,
What you observed?
what I observed.
That's what he wants you to answer.
Okay, I observed a loving relationship where along the right lines that, they would.
Answer the question as best you can, and if there's an objection, stop, or if the judge tells you to stop,
Okay.
stop. But you're doing fine until somebody jumps up or tells you to stop.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm going down the right road. It was a loving relationship. Their kids were top priority for them, and they interacted beautifully together in the sense that they knew each other well, and there was a mutual respect there, and you could see that. And just overall, they were comfortable people to be around, very down to earth, very welcoming, very warm. And that was transparent in both of their personalities, which, again, made them so likable.
Now, did you, during the time that you spent with them during the summer of 2009, the summer of 2010, did you ever observe any argumentative behavior one towards the other? And by that, it could be argumentative behavior could be either a vocal argument, or it could be what most men call a silent treatment that we get sometimes. Did you ever witness either of those?
I did not witness either of those.
Did you actually witness Mrs. Sneiderman and Rusty do stuff together?
Absolutely.
What types of things did you see them do?
They would take care of their kids mutually. Like if one was struggling, if one was crying, the other one would jump right in. They worked hand in hand. I almost feel like it was a real partnership in a way. And then the boat. Rusty loved being on the boat above all else. And so we spend a lot of time on the boat. They were on the boat together. We'd go to their.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I have to object to the narrative. I think the question has been answered. It was asked, it was answered, and now the witness is just going on a narrative, and I object to the narrative.
Yes, sir, Mr. Petrie.
I disagree, Your Honor, on this. She is giving examples. I asked her what type of conduct, what type of interaction she saw, and I believe the witness is allowed to explain that they weren't just poaching at the pool, they were on the boat, they were doing other things as well. I believe that is.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Petrie. A witness is allowed to answer the question and explain. I agree. The witness is allowed to answer the question and explain the question.
Right.
And answer, I should say.
And I don't believe this was a yes or no. I was asking her to give some examples, and I believe that's what she was attempting to do, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes, I heard the objection as far as she had answered at least the question that you had propounded. You may ask another one, but I would sustain that objection as far as it did. At least my ears, it was going into, the objection was narrative.
Okay.
But you may ask more questions. I'm not limited. Ask
I'll be
whatever you
happy
want
to,
to
Your
ask.
Honor. Did you observe them do anything else?
Most of the time we were with the kids, I know that very often when we would just jump on the boat and go and see if they were there, they would be on their dock together. And I'd say, well, where are the kids? And they'd hold up, the little, the baby monitor. Because the kids were napping inside. So they were just hanging out on the dock together.
Did
Yeah.
you, please, I'm
Nope.
sorry to interrupt you.
You're
Well,
fine.
I will interrupt you then. Did you and your husband ever have the opportunity, without kids, to go anywhere or do anything with Rusty and Andrea?
Think about that one. No. No, we
Always-
were always with kids,
Family type activity?
family time activities. They had invited us a couple times. I think they went to a rodeo once, and they came over with their crazy hats on and said, do you want to come with us? And we just didn't have the opportunity to do so.
Okay.
So the invitation was there, but never followed through.
Now, you're aware that Rusty was killed on November 18, 2010.
That's right.
Can you tell us, to the best of your recollection, how long before Rusty was killed was it the last time that you saw him, with or without Andrea?
The last time I believe I saw him was at the end of July and of 2010. Yes.
Where did you see him?
We were at, they came over to my parents' home. We personally had a lot of relatives that were over, that were from out of state, and so there were a lot of pictures taken. There was a big group of people there.
Okay. And to the best of your recollection, that was the last time you saw Rusty with or without Andrea, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that prior to Rusty's death, you saw Andrea between that late July incident and his death? If you can recall.
No,
again.
I do not believe I saw Andrea or Rusty.
At the July gathering,
I think it was July 30th.
okay, did you take, or were you present when a picture was taken of their family?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What number? Who's calling? 45. 45. And this is yours, right?
Mr. Clegg at 44.
Okay, that's fine.
He's at 45. Mr. Clegg at 44. This is 45.
This is 45.
I object to 45, Judge, on the grounds of relevance.
Ms. Petrie, why is this relevant?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, I believe this is relevant. This is a photograph that will be identified as a photograph of Mrs. Sneiderman and her husband taken at the end of July 2010, which is a photographic visual display of the relationship at that time.
Would you, Mr. Deputy, if y'all could assist me, would you secure that phone for disrupting my courtroom? I apologize, Mr. Petrie. Could you
That's
finish
fine.
what you were saying?
Yes, Your Honor, that this photograph, I believe, will be identified by the witness as being a photograph that was taken at her parents' home in late July 2010, and for whatever value the jury wishes to give it, it is a pictorial representation of the relationship between Andrea Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman on that day.
In July of 2010?
July of 2010, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Hill,
Judge, relevance is the only.
I'm going to sustain the objection at this time. All right, Ms. Hill, is this your witness?
It is, Judge, and I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Petrie or Ms. Hill, in objection to Ms. Barandiaran?
Close enough.
Come, young lady,
you.
have a good day, drive safely. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, prior to calling the next witness, may I interpose an objection to the court's last ruling?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Failure to allow us to introduce that evidence.
Noted. Yes, sir. Did you want to put something else on the record? Yes.
No, sir.
Okay,
We
we're
believe
good.
it is relevant. No, I'm sorry.
No, I understand.
Moving something out of my chair.
Oh, no problem. Call your next witness, please. Mr. Petrie or Mr. Morgan?
Brian Jury.
Defense counsel Jerry Joseph, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'll go get it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen. You come on up, sir. Follow the instructions of the deputy.
Robbery, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I know your name. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Jerry Joseph. That's Joseph.
And if you would, please spell Jerry, because they're different spellings.
Jerry.
And Mr. Joseph, where do you reside, sir?
In Eatonton, Georgia.
And who do you live there with?
Pardon me?
Who do you live there with? Who do you?
I live there with my wife.
Do you know the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman, in this case?
I do.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom this afternoon?
I do.
And will you please point him out for the judge and the jury, Mr. Joseph?
Right there.
And what is she wearing, please?
Pardon?
What is she wearing? Color sweater.
It looks like a beige thing with a black
Beige thing.
shirt.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
All right.
Your Honor, with the made statement, may I ask the court to say
Yes,
he's
sir.
identified the
The record may reflect he's identified the defendant. Yes, sir. You may
Thank you,
continue.
Mr. Joseph. And how do you know Andrea, sir?
I met Andrea at the lake.
And which lake is that?
That's Lake Oconee in Eatonton.
And do you recall about when that was?
I believe it was 2008 because she was very pregnant with her son.
Okay. And did you also meet her husband, Rusty?
Certainly.
Okay. Did you meet them together or separately, or do you recall?
I met them together.
Okay. And did you know them as a couple up until November 18th, 2010?
I did.
Did you do anything, you and your wife, as a couple with the Sneidermans?
Yes, we had frequent weekends when the Sneidermans would come out. My grandchildren are of a similar age as her
Similar age
children,
of their children.
and they happen to get along very well. So either my kids went to their house or they came to ours.
And when you say kids, let's be specific.
My grandchildren.
Your grandchildren would play with their children.
Right.
Okay. Did you and your wife do anything as a couple with Rusty and Andrea?
Yes, we did.
And what types of things were that, sir?
We had dinners, we had lunches. Andrea would come over quite often with the children and walk into our house and make lunch, and sometimes for all of us. I mean, we just like type things.
And to the best of your ability, during the pleasant months, say May through October, how often do you believe you saw the Sneidermans?
I'm sorry, Judge,
I didn't hear you.
if I could just get the year. You said May through October.
Oh, okay. Mr. Morgan, if you
From
could.
2008 until Mr. Sneiderman's death.
I saw them probably every other weekend at least, during the good months.
And did that include 2010?
Yes.
And were you able to observe their relationship before 2010 as well?
Certainly.
Okay. And how would you describe that relationship, Mr. Joseph?
Well, I think the best description would be that it was a very good partnership. They shared the care of the children. They shared doing jobs around the house and things of that nature, and just seemed like a very good relationship.
Now, the Sneidermans would be, no offense, a generation the same age as your children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your relationship was still...
Your Honor, I'm objecting to the leading nature of the questions.
I'm going to sustain that.
I'll rephrase the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Did you notice any difference in your observations between their relationship from 2008, 2009, and 2010?
Not really. No. It was pretty even relationship that I saw.
Okay. Did you notice any tension in their marriage in 2010?
Well, I'm sure there was tension. I noticed tension in my own marriage. I've been married for a long time.
It's part of the definition of marriage, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Did you notice any unusual tension from 2008, 2009, and 2010?
No, sir.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Is this your witness, Ms. Hill? Any
It
questions?
is, Judge. No questions. Thank you, Mr. Justice.
Lawyers, may Mr. Joseph be released and excuse Mr. Pena?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection from the state.
Thank you for coming, sir. Have a good day. Drive safe. Call your next witness.
Defense calls
You're welcome.
Andy.
And who?
I'm sorry, Andy Liptman.
All right.
L-I-P-M-A-N.
Thank you. You come on up, sir. Follow the instructions of the deputy. Deputy Garrett.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you have in this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that you got?
Yes.
May you believe me. State and spell your name for the record.
Andy Liptman, A-N-D-Y, or Andrew, A-N-D-R-E-W, Liptman, L-I-P-M-A-N.
And Mr. Lipman, where do you reside, sir?
I live in Norcross, Georgia.
And do you know the defendant in this case, Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom today?
I do.
And what is Andrea wearing, sir?
Looks like, I'm not good with colors, but brown, a brownish, there's some orange on there, a brown sweater.
Okay. Your Honor, please let the record reflect that he has pointed out the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman.
Yes, the record may reflect he's identified
Everybody's
Mrs.
got-
Sneiderman in a brown sweater.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Lipman, how do you know Andrea?
I became friends with Andrea and Rusty at a Thanksgiving party. It was a lunch. It was back in 2008, November 2008. Became friends with her and her husband, and my wife and I became couples friends with them. That's kind of how we got to know each other.
Did you know either Rusty or Andrea prior to 2008?
I did not.
And were you already married at the time?
I was.
Okay. And where did this dinner take place?
This was at Tammy Parker's house, Steve and Tammy Parker, and we just had children the same age, so we had a lot in common, and Rusty and I were both baseball fans, so we got to talk a lot about that. So we just had a lot in common, so it was just very easy to get to know each other.
Okay. And did you and your wife's name is?
Andrea.
Andrea as well?
Yes.
And did you and Andrea and Rusty and Andrea do things as a couple together?
We did.
And what types of things did y'all do?
We went to Braves games, Gwinnett Braves. We would just have dinner. We saw movies together. We went to the lake house together, and we did a lot of fun little get-togethers.
How frequently would you say you observed Rusty and Andrea as a couple?
I'd say pretty often. I'd say at least every week, maybe 2 weeks. Just depends a lot. Sometimes one of us would go to dinner with the other, or one couple would go to dinner at somebody else's house. So I would say quite often, at least every couple of weeks.
And that was from the time you met until Rusty's death?
That's correct.
Okay. How would you describe their relationship, your observations?
Happy. I mean, they were great together. They made each other laugh. It was easy to be around them.
Okay. And did you notice any change in the relationship from 2008, 2009 to 2010?
I really didn't. They always seemed happy to me.
Okay. Were you present at a birthday party for Sophia at the lake on September 5th, 2010?
We were. I was. My wife and I were.
Okay.
And my children.
Did you have a chance to observe Rusty and Andrea during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice any tension or anything unusual about their relationship then?
No, nothing unusual. They seemed pretty happy.
I apologize. What number are we on? Out in the next one. 46.
Your Honor, the state's going to have an objection to defense 46, irrelevance.
Your Honor, approach.
Sure, come on up, lawyers.
approach.
Yes, sir, you may approach.
Mr. Liptman, without going into the contents of the photograph, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when that photograph was taken?
It was, I don't remember the exact year, Sophia's birthday.
I'm sorry, you say you don't remember the exact year?
Was it the,
I'm going to object, Your Honor, on the renew the state's objection to relevance.
Well, for right now, he hadn't moved it into evidence yet, but I understand. Just hold on to it.
All right.
You may lay your foundation.
all right, do you remember how many birthday parties that you went to for Sophia?
I would say 2 or 3. I only went to one on the lake, because I recognize this is the lake from this picture.
Okay, so you were only at one party at the lake?
Right.
Okay. And do you remember what year that was?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm thinking it was in 2008.
2008?
I'm sorry, not 2008. I'm sorry, 2010. I'm just trying to think. It was I believe it was right after my birthday. I think it was around September 5th.
Of 2010?
Of 2010, right.
Okay. And do you recognize the people in that photograph?
I do. I recognize. You want me to say who I recognize in the picture?
Just right now, do you recognize the
Yes.
persons?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, at this time we move for admission of state's exhibit featuring that defense exhibit 46.
Any objection?
The state's objection is to relevance, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to override objection since he indicates, based on his testimony, he believes it was in the year 2010 at a birthday event. So for the purpose of that, Mr. Morgan, I'm going to let it in for right now.
Okay. May I publish to the jury?
You may.
Mr. Liptman, do you identify the boat driver with the gold wedding band on it?
I do.
And who is that, please?
That's Rusty Sneiderman.
Okay. And did you see him that day?
I did.
And did you see Andrea that day?
I did.
Was there anything that you observed unusual about the two of them as a couple that day?
No, it was actually quite the same. Quite the usual. He would drive the boat, happy-go-lucky. That's kind of how he always was. And she would make the cake or, just do things around the house, get things done.
So let me ask you, was it during these parties at the lake, whose responsibility was it to drive the boat?
It was usually Rusty. It was always, Rusty loved to drive the boat.
And whose responsibility was it to take care of the children and prepare the food?
So that would be Andrea.
Okay. And where was this food prepared?
In the house, in the lake house.
Did you see Rusty and Andrea after September 5th, 2010?
Yes.
And where did you see them?
I'm sure a few times, but I know definitely at our charity softball tournament.
Let me interrupt you there. You say, what type of charity softball tournament?
It's called Wish for Wendy.
Your Honor, the relevance.
Mr. Morgan, why is that relevant?
I'm just laying the foundation as to when he observed them, Judge.
You can ask that question. I'm going to sustain that objection. Next question.
Where did you observe them?
At the softball event, which was at Alpharetta's North Park.
Okay. And were Andrea and Rusty at the softball event?
Yes.
What was their purpose for being there?
Andrea was a volunteer for the event, and Rusty was on our team. He was also our sponsorship chairman. I started the event, so Rusty was on our committee.
Did you observe anything unusual about them at that time?
No, they were just happy as usual. I mean, Andrea actually came and watched Rusty play his game, our 2 games that we played.
Okay. Did you see them after that event? And do you recall what date that was?
I don't recall the date. We, as I said, we usually saw each other 1 or every 2 weeks, but I believe they left after that. They had I believe a cruise, or it was around that time. So no, I don't remember if we did actually see each other. I know Rusty and I talked via email. That's about it.
Okay. After that charity event, did you get the chance to see them as a couple again before Rusty was killed?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. No further questions, Judge.
Ms. Cross, this is your witness. You may cross-examine if you wish.
It is, Your Honor. I have no questions for Mr. Liptman.
All right. Lawyers, may this witness be released and excuse Ms. Feeney. Ms. Moore.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Green-Cross.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, Mr. Liptman, you're free to go. Have a good day. Drive safely. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would call Mr. Ben Nadler to the witness stand.
All right. Mr. Clegg, is someone, but Mr. James came in.
So I was expecting Mr. James to help us out. Apparently he couldn't be bothered. So.
You can come on up, sir.
Turn around, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear in front of the testimony you shall give this court, to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may go in here, may be seated.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Ben Nadler, Nadler.
Mr. Nadler, do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, I do.
And do you see her in the courtroom here today?
Yes, she's sitting over here.
Can you describe what she is wearing for purposes of the record?
A light brown sweater top and a black and blue blouse underneath.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, the record may so reflect.
Do you know, how is it that you know Andrea Sneiderman, sir?
We first met both her and Rusty through our synagogue.
And when would that have been, sir?
It'd be February of 2010.
Okay. And did you have occasion to come into contact with Andrea and Rusty while they were at the synagogue?
Yes.
Okay. How often do you recall seeing them at the synagogue during the course of the year of 2010, sir?
I'd say maybe on average about once a month.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to observe the two of them together on those occasions when you would see them at the synagogue?
Yes, I did.
Can you share your observations as to how they interacted with one another and how they seemed to get along with one another?
Certainly, yes. They almost always seem to be smiling, to be happy, laughing with each other. On occasion, I would see them holding hands.
Did you ever see them quarrel or spat with one another?
No, sir.
Did you ever notice or observe any sort of tension between the two of them?
No.
Did you ever notice them giving each other the silent treatment?
No.
Okay. Did you have occasion to see Mrs. Sneiderman approximately 2 weeks before the death of her husband?
Yes. In fact, I know that it was definitely, it was the first Saturday of November.
Of the year 2010?
Yes.
Where is it you would have seen her at that time?
So that was also at the synagogue, and what happened was she came in, and she was there to pick up their daughter from the religious school. It was a Saturday morning, and I happened to have noticed that she was wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and so I made a joke. I said, well, what are you doing coming to synagogue in sweats? And what she told me was that she was there.
Your Honor, to hearsay.
No, it's from Mrs. Sneiderman, and it goes to the nature of her relationship with her husband.
And it would be self-serving, and that's it.
Let me, come up for a minute, lawyers, please.
Jeff Hollinger along with B.J. Pak, the defense attorney. As we are looking at the lawyers in front of Judge Adams right now, we have seen a collection of friends of the Sneidermans, and all have tried to point a very normal kind of marital relationship between Rusty and Andrea prior to the murder. Are you surprised by that they would trot out this number of witnesses?
Well, not really, because I think that Ms. Citron's testimony is very harmful to the defense, and I think they're trying to provide quantity over quality in terms of witnesses.
All right, back into the courtroom.
Did you have a conversation with Andrea Sneiderman at that time, sir?
Yes.
What was the subject of that conversation?
So first she started talking about what she was doing that day, which was that...
We don't need to go in specifically to what she was doing. Was there at some point a conversation where she spoke about her husband?
Yes.
Could you tell us what she said about her husband back on, was it November the 6th?
Whatever that first Saturday.
First Saturday of November of 2010. Mm-hmm. What did she say about her husband at that time, sir?
She was talking about how Rusty is very good friends with Andy Liptman, and how he was very excited to be involved with this Wish for Wendy. It's a charity softball tournament. And she was very excited to be telling me about how well it was going and how successful it was. And she was saying it with, you could really hear this pride in her voice in talking about her husband, that he's such a good fundraiser, and he's so good at networking, and he's been able to pull together a lot of great funds for, a lot of funds for this particular event. And she was very excited about it. And there were, you could, as she was talking about him, you could see the smile on her face was getting bigger, and there was like this little sparkle in her eye as she was talking about him, and you could just really hear the pride in her voice.
How long would you estimate that particular conversation went on for, sir?
Probably about 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Did you have occasion to see either she or her husband again prior to the death of Rusty Sneiderman?
No.
Thank you very much, sir. Nothing further.
All right.
Ms. Green-Cross, you may cross-examine if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Nadler,
Yes.
I understood your testimony to be that your interaction with the Sneidermans was about once a month in the months leading up to Rusty's murder.
Right.
You saw them at the synagogue.
And one other place as well.
What was that?
So occasionally at the preschool that both of our kids went to at the time.
Okay, so you weren't close personal friends. You wouldn't characterize your relationship that way, would you?
No.
You didn't call him on the phone?
No.
Ms. Sneiderman didn't confide in you about anything?
No.
Mr. Sneiderman didn't confide in you about anything?
No.
You certainly weren't with him on a day-to-day basis in any kind of, any stretch of what your testimony is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so your testimony was in those handful of times that you saw them in the months leading up to Rusty's murder, they appeared happy to you as far as you could tell?
Yes.
Okay. This November 6th conversation you had with the defendant, when her eyes sparkled, that was your testimony, right? Her eyes sparkled?
Yes.
All right. Did she tell you, while her eyes were sparkling, about her relationship with her boss, Hemi Newman?
No.
That name didn't come up?
No.
Okay. Did she tell you in that November 6th conversation that she had betrayed Rusty?
No.
She didn't tell you anything like that?
No.
And you wouldn't expect her to tell you anything like that, given your relationship, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nadler. I don't have anything else.
Okay.
And I have no other questions of Mr. Nadler. May he be excused, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Cross?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, sir, you're free to go. Have a good day.
Okay.
Drive safely.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
Call Jeffrey Moss, Your Honor. I'll get it myself.
All right. You can come on in, Mr. Joseph. You come on in. You want to come in? Come on in, Mr. Joseph. on in. Oh, you're quite welcome. Come on in. Come and go as you please. That's okay. Come on in, sir. Please follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett.
Turn around, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you got to give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir? Yes, I do. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Jeffrey Moss, Jeffrey Moss.
Mr. Moss, what part of the country do you live in, please, sir?
I live in Chicago, Illinois.
And what type of work do you do?
I'm in the education industry.
And are you a teacher or administrator or planner? What
I'm
do you
a
do?
vice president of an education company that serves students with special education needs.
Okay. How long have you been in that line of work, please, sir?
As an operator, about 3 years. As an investor, about a decade.
Okay. Now, do you know Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, I do.
How long have you known her?
Probably just under 20 years.
Okay. How do you know Andrea Sneiderman?
I was introduced to Andrea by Rusty Sneiderman in college right after they started dating.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Who did you know first? Rusty Sneiderman, or I guess then Andrea Greenberg?
I met Rusty my first day of undergraduate, so Rusty.
First day of freshman year?
First day of freshman year, Rusty and his roommate lived across the hall from me. So I met him literally as I was moving into the dorms.
Okay. Did you develop a friendship initially with Rusty in college?
Yes, I did. Rusty and I became fast friends. We were both business majors, and we hit it off from the first day. Rusty seemed to hit it off with everyone, but we hit it off since the first day of school.
Okay. Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how long you were friends with Rusty before Andrea Mae Greenberg, now Sneiderman, came into the picture?
I can't remember what year of college they started dating, but it was probably 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Tell us, please, the circumstances under which you met Andrea Sneiderman.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance?
Mr. Petrie.
Your Honor, I believe that laying the foundation for his knowledge of both Andrea and Rusty and the extent of their relationship from the year early 90s until 2010 is very relevant. It lays the foundation and the credibility of this witness as to his observations.
I'm over the objection at this point in time. We'll give you some latitude, Mr. Petrie. Go
Yes, sir.
ahead.
I'm not going on forever. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What year are we in now?
We're in her freshman year, I think, Your Honor.
What year is this?
It would have been 93, 94.
All right. We're okay.
Okay.
That's fine. We're in 93. Go ahead.
I'm not going to take you year by year, please.
Getting old.
What were the circumstances under which you first met her?
I first met Andrea at Rusty's apartment. He had introduced me to Andrea. He told me about a new girl he was dating, and I went over to his apartment for some reason and was introduced to Andrea then.
Okay. And did you have the opportunity from that date through the years to, even if you weren't with them routinely or periodically, to once you got out of college, did you have the opportunity to still stay connected with them?
Yeah, Rusty and I were very close all the way until he passed away. Even though we lived in different cities at the same time, in the same city at different times, we stayed very, very close. They moved to Chicago when I was living there. I was living
Approximately when was that?
Sorry, that was 1998 or 99, somewhere in there. I moved to Boston in 99. Rusty and Andrea followed in, I think, about 2000 or 2001 when Rusty started business school. And then I had moved around since then, and they moved to Atlanta. I got to continue to see them relatively frequently from probably 2004 until 2010. I was a venture capitalist and had several portfolio companies in the Atlanta area, and would always try to visit with them when I was in town.
So after they moved to Atlanta, Mr. Moss, you were still living in Chicago at that time?
I was living in probably Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Chicago.
Not at the same time?
Not at the same time.
How often during the period of time between 2004, when they moved to Atlanta, when you first started visiting here in Atlanta, 2010 when Rusty died, on approximately how many different occasions do you believe you got a chance to see them here in the Atlanta area?
Gosh, maybe 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. I apologize, I don't remember the exact number.
That's fine. And did you, on any of those occasions, ever actually stay at their home?
A number of times.
When they first moved to Boston, were you already in Boston before they moved there?
Yes, I was in Boston working. Andrea came, stayed with me the night before when they were here looking for houses, and I think Rusty came the next day.
What year is this?
This was 99, 2000.
1999, 2000. Go ahead.
And did they, in fact, live with you in Boston for a while, sir?
They didn't live with me, but they lived nearby in Cambridge.
Did they ever stay with you while they were trying to find a home?
Yes, they did.
Okay, and,
Numerous times.
I guess I'm using the word live a little too freely there. Did they stay with you
Yes,
when they
they
were
did.
looking for their own residence?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And the...
Lawyers, approach for a minute. Lawyers, approach for a minute.
Jeff Hullinger along with B.J. Pak, the defense attorney, and we have seen friend after friend of the Sneidermans, Rusty and Andrea, prior to Rusty's murder, and this guy is from Chicago here who is an associate as well, again painting that picture of a relationship that was not in trouble.
Certainly, that's cutting against the main theme of the prosecution. That's the basis for many of the charges in this case, which is the romantic relationship between Hemi Newman and Ms. Sneiderman, and also the false statements.
If they have trotted out at least a half a dozen of these friends who have been, for the most part, without any kind of emotion, you still believe that Shana Citron's evidence, where she was highly charged, highly theatrical, if you will, still is a real shot at Andrea Sneiderman in this trial.
Certainly, this is a battle of quantity over quality of testimony.
Back into the courtroom now.
Did you have occasion to observe their interactions with each other once they moved to Atlanta, your own observations of how they, as a couple, handled themselves? Not an opinion or a guess or a supposition, but what was actually observable to someone witnessing them?
Yes, I had dinner with them several times during my visits to Atlanta. I stayed at their house. We spent many a night talking about some of Rusty's business ventures and career opportunities and the like, so I spent a fair amount of time, and Andrea was, if not always, certainly very frequently part of those conversations.
Okay. Did you observe, when was the last time you saw Rusty?
Last time I saw Rusty was probably the end of 2009 or beginning of 2010.
And again, that was down here in Atlanta?
That was down in Atlanta.
Okay. Now, when you observed Rusty and Andrea together at the end of Rusty's life, within the last, say, year or year and a half of Rusty's life, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Moss, whether or not you observed anything about their relationship indicating to you that there was a rift or a coldness or an emotional separation or anything of that nature?
There was nothing different at all. It was the same as they had been in college. It was the same as they were, as I had always known them as a couple.
Okay. Are you married, sir?
Yes, I am.
Do you know what the silent treatment is?
Yes, I do.
Did you ever see one or the other of it give it to the other? And that might be Rusty and Andrea.
No.
Okay. And as opposed to active aggression or hostility, sort of passive aggressive stonewall silence.
I didn't see either one.
Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, Mr. Moss, whether or not you observed, let's say in 2009, 2010, when you were with them, did you observe them actually doing activities together other than hosting you? So in other words, other than sitting down with you and maybe having a glass of wine or dinner, did you observe them doing other activities? Business-related, family-related, anything of that nature?
Well, family was such a strong part of everything they did, so when it was having dinner with them, it was actually sitting down with their children and them having dinner. I went with Rusty once actually to drop Ian off at daycare a couple of years earlier. So yeah, I saw some of it, but I was typically with them during the week as opposed to weekends, and because I was trying to get home to my family on the weekends.
Okay. But during those times that you were with them during the week, the observations that you made, were those consistent with what you've previously testified here to today?
Yes. I mean, everything from, again, putting the kids down at night, to bathing the children, to having meals, and then even the conversations that we were having more socially. Again, everything is consistent.
Okay. To the best of your recollection, Mr. Moss, were there any occasions, any topics, any behavior on the behalf of Andrea Sneiderman or Rusty Sneiderman that appeared to be an aberration for the types of behavior you'd known them to do for the last 18 to 20 years?
Nothing at all.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Greencross, is this your witness?
It is, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. You may cross-examine if you wish.
Thank you. Mr. Moss, if I understood your testimony, you hadn't even seen Rusty or Andrea for almost a year prior to Rusty's death. Is that right?
No, that wasn't what I said.
Please explain. What did you say?
I said I may have seen him at the beginning of 2010 or end of 2009. He died on November 18th.
Okay, so sometime in late 2009 and early 2010 was the last time you saw Rusty.
The last time I saw them, however, I know I spoke with Rusty
Please
a
listen
number
to
of
my
times
question.
beforehand.
Mr. Moss, please listen to my question. I'm
Sorry,
asking when the
I haven't done
last
this
time
before.
you saw Rusty.
Yeah, it was probably, again, end of 2009, beginning of 2010.
Approximately a year prior to his death. 10 months to a year prior to his death.
That's probably about right.
Thank you. And in that 10 months to a year prior to his death, you didn't notice anything unusual about their behavior together. Is that right?
Nothing at all.
They had the perfect marriage as far as you could tell.
That was, as far as I could tell, yes.
As far as you could tell. Now, the last time you saw Rusty and Andrea in late 2009 or early 2010, the defendant had not yet gone to work at GE. Is that right?
That's correct.
So
At
during...
least I think it is. Do you have the exact date she started work? I apologize. I just want to make sure I'm being truthful.
Please listen to my question. To the best of your recollection, the last time you saw Rusty and Andrea Sneiderman prior to his death was Andrea Sneiderman working at GE. To the best of your recollection.
I don't remember when she started.
Do you remember at the time you saw her that she had started a new job?
I don't recall.
Okay. And you didn't come visit, you talked with Mr. Petrie about the many times you've come to Atlanta to see them. In all of in July 2010, did you come to see them?
No, I did not.
Okay. In August of 2010, did you come to see them?
No, I did not.
In September of 2010, did you come to see them?
No, I did not.
What about October 2010?
No, I did not.
All right. What, if anything, did you know about the defendant's relationship with her boss, Hemi Newman? At the time?
At the time, I knew he was her boss, and I knew Rusty was trying to help him find a job because Rusty made an introduction to me over email to him.
Did you know that the defendant had a romantic relationship with him in 2010?
No, I did not.
She never talked to you about that?
No, she didn't.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Mr. Petrie, any additional questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, you may. Ask as many as you wish.
Mr. Moss, you, of your own knowledge, the question was asked of you, do you know that she had a romantic relationship with Hemi Newman? You answered no. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You don't know whether or not she did, correct?
Correct. That's why I was a little surprised by the question.
Okay. Thank you.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from his subpoena.
Your Honor, we have no objection. He is also an out-of-state witness who's got a bag as long as the state understands that he would be hopping on a plane.
All right. I understand. I have no objection.
All right, you're free to go.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back to wherever. Chicago, I believe.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Call your next witness, please. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. Follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett. Your 10 minutes, Mr. Clegg. Tell all rise.
Welcome back to 11 Alive's continuing coverage of the trial of Andrea Sneiderman. I'm Jeff Hullinger along with B.J. Pak, the defense attorney and a member of the Georgia House of Representatives, District 108. You think the defense is done?
Thank you for your patience and your understanding. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Thank you for your patience and your understanding. Just make yourself comfortable. So everyone has a seat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. All right, lawyers and parties, you may be seated. Mr. Clegg, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would call Miss Alana Stevens.
Come on up, Ms. Stevens. Come on up. Come on in. Follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett. He'll let you know what to do.
Raise your right hand. Any solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may be seated. Please state the spelling of your record.
Alana Stevens, A-L-A-N-A-S-T-E-V-E-N-S.
Ms. Stevens, do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes.
How is it that you know Andrea Sneiderman, ma'am?
I attended Harvard Business School with Rusty. We met in August of 2000, 13 years ago.
How long does it take to complete the course of study at Harvard Business School?
2 years.
And was Rusty in your class?
He was, and in fact, he sat next to me, so we spent quite a bit of time together.
Okay. Did you have interaction with she and her husband while Rusty was at Harvard Business School and while Andrea was residing with him in Boston or in Cambridge back during the time period in question?
Absolutely. First note, Andrea worked at the business school, so she was around, but more importantly, on a social nature, we spent quite a bit of time together.
Okay.
What year is this?
2000 till 2002.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Can you describe the relationship that you observed between the two of them back at that time, ma'am?
Yes. It was, Rusty and Andrea together were a wonderful, warm, kind, supportive unit. They each were individually wonderful people, dynamic, energetic, but together they fed off that energy and were something truly extraordinary.
During the time that you were in business school with Rusty and Andrea was residing in Cambridge, how frequently would you have occasion to see them as a couple?
Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to impose an objection. We are in 2002, so I would say that it's not relevant.
Mr. Clegg.
Your Honor, my response is this. Ms. Stevens is describing a relationship that she observed back between 2000 and 2002.
Correct.
This court has heard, as well as his jury, other evidence from individuals who had contact with these folks in 2010. Correct. It is my belief that the testimony that is going to be elicited from Ms. Stevens will corroborate the testimony that has been produced in the year 2010 showing the nature of the relationship, especially in light of, I believe, the last gentleman who testified, Mr. Moss, who indicated that he had known the couple for a long time, I guess since the day they started college, he and Rusty started college, and that his observation of the connection or relationship between Andrea Sneiderman and her husband continued unabated up at least until late 2009, 2010. I will admit this witness did not have, I don't believe, personal contact with the Sneiderman since 2006. But we are trying to show a consistent pattern of a relationship. We have had witnesses who have testified that there had been, in fact, a consistent relationship from as early as 1994, 1995-ish, all the way up until 2010. And this is just one more witness who is familiar with them as a couple who can corroborate the relationship they had back in 2002 is the same relationship they had in 2010.
All right. Ms. Hill?
Your Honor, my objection again would still be based on the grounds of relevance. The testimony that has been elicited from this witness, Your Honor, simply is about 2002. It's just not relevant as to what was going on in 2010, and she has no basis from which to draw a comparison since her last contact was in 06.
All right, I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question.
Okay, Ms. Stevens, directing your attention to December the 29th of 2010. Did you have occasion to see Andrea Sneiderman at or about that time?
Yes.
Where were you on December 29th of 2010, ma'am?
Naples, Florida.
Okay. How is it that you said was Andrea Sneiderman and her family guests at your home on or about that day?
On that day, for the whole day.
Did you have an opportunity to observe her emotional state and condition and demeanor at that time, ma'am?
Yes.
Can you describe it for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, ma'am?
It was a very tough day for Andrea.
Well, he asked you to describe
Sorry,
her
okay.
emotional
She was
state. Answer his question.
sad, clearly upset, quite depressed. There were moments of joy when our children played together, but in general, you felt how sad she was.
Okay. How much time did she spend with you on that day, ma'am, if you recall?
Yeah, they arrived around 11 and left 8:30, a whole day.
Did you notice or observe her condition, emotional state brighten at any point during the course of that day?
Not really.
Your Honor, having noted my objection as to your ruling, I will have no other questions of Ms. Stevens.
All right. Ms. Hill, any questions?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Lawyers, may Ms. Stevens be released and excused from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Have a good day. Call your next witness.
Defense counsel Easter, I will get her objection.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's fine.
You can come on up, ma'am. Follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may go again. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Cheryl Easter, Sherrill, Easter, Easter.
Now approach the witness.
You may. Yes, sir.
Ms. Easter, good afternoon. Do you know the defendant in this case, Andrea Sneiderman?
No, I do not.
Okay. You've never met her?
No.
Okay. Please tell the jury your employment history. Are you retired at this point?
I am.
And where are you?
Your Honor, I object as to the relevance at this point.
I'm going to give him a little latitude. Go ahead. I'm going to hold the objection for right now. Go ahead.
Where were you employed prior to your retirement?
General Electric.
And how long were you with General Electric, ma'am?
I was there for 28 years.
And where were you stationed out of?
I was in various offices in the Atlanta area. I worked for GE Capital, GE Credit.
And was your entire career in Atlanta?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with the corporate culture at GE?
After 28 years, absolutely.
Okay. And what type of positions, again, did you hold?
I was in various positions. I started out as a bill collector, and I worked my way up. I was in...
One second, lawyer's approach.
Yes.
All right, we have a new witness from General Electric, B.J. Pak. The lawyers are approaching. What is up for discussion between them and Judge Adams?
They're talking about the relevancy of her testimony, because I think based on the question that J. Tom Morgan was asking, I think he was going to get into the corporate culture. I don't know how he's going to be able to link that to any relevant issues in the case, but I think that's where he was heading, and obviously the prosecution has objected.
You know what, when the state finished all of its evidence on Monday and it was time for the defense, the conventional wisdom held that the defense had to have kind of a focus, like a laser beam for the jury so they didn't get lost. This doesn't look like a laser beam to me. It looks like there's all kinds of people here that have a somewhat tenuous knowledge of the relationship between Rusty and Andrea. You agree or disagree with that?
I disagree with that a little bit, because I think there's a constant theme here, is to paint the relationship between Ms. Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman as a happy one, which, like I said before, it negates two important themes of the prosecution's case. One is that there was no romantic relationship between the shooter and Ms. Sneiderman, and number two, that it's unlikely that she would have known anything
Ms. Hill,
related
is this your
to
witness?
Rusty being shot prior to that event happening.
All right, B.J. Pak, thank you. Let's go back into the courtroom now and Judge
Thank
Adams.
you very much for coming. Have a good day. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yeah, oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Come on up, lawyer.
All right, we're going to jump back in again. B.J., what now? To be up there, to go back, and then to return very quickly?
I think the judge is asking about the when's the end, so to speak, and for scheduling purposes, to see how many more witnesses the defense has.
What is the burden of proof for perjury, reasonable doubt, etc.? That's from Roland Thunder off of Twitter.
In any criminal case, the burden's on the prosecution to prove that they committed the crime beyond the reasonable doubt. And that is the constitutional standard that every state and the federal government follows.
This is from Gina. If Andrea takes the stand, does that mean the defense isn't confident in their case? Thank you.
No, not necessarily. I do think that that shows that they believe that the prosecution might have presented sufficient evidence that in order for the defense to show that there is reasonable doubt, and sometimes the defendant wants to tell his or her side of the story, so you can't read too much into that.
When do you think we will receive word about Andrea Sneiderman's decision to either testify or not? Would you guess it will come in the next hour?
Well, if they're out of witnesses, and on top of that, if the prosecution decides not to put on rebuttal case, then we should know the decision. I'm sorry. Before they close, before the defendant arrests, they would have to tell the judge and the prosecutors that Mrs. Sneiderman decided to testify or not to testify.
B.J. Pak, thank you. Back into the courtroom now.
Since you're the liaison, that's who I'm talking to. All right, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would call Ms. Diane Trump to the witness stand.
Come on up, ma'am. Follow the instructions of the deputy.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Diane Trump, Diane Trump.
Ms. Trump, are you familiar or do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, sir.
And do you see her in this courtroom here today, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Is she the young lady wearing the brown sweater with the blue and black underneath it?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant,
Rec-
Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman.
Yes, sir. The record makes so reflect.
When did you meet Andrea Sneiderman?
I met her on a cruise in November 2010.
Okay. Were you with your husband at that time?
Yes, sir.
Was Mrs. Sneiderman with her husband at that time?
Yes, sir.
Where did the cruise leave from or sail out of?
Sailed out of Miami and sailed to Cozumel as a stop and then back.
Okay. How many days was the cruise?
4?
Okay. What were the circumstances under which you came to meet, or let me ask you this, did you meet her husband as well, Rusty Sneiderman?
Yes, sir.
What were the circumstances under which you met Mr. and Mrs. Sneiderman on that cruise, ma'am?
Andrea and Rusty were our dinner mates.
If you could speak into the microphone, you're soft-spoken, so I
I'm
apologize.
sorry.
No problem.
Andrea and Rusty were our dinner mates on the cruise. They randomly select people to sit at your table. That's your standard assigned seats. And they were our dinner mates every night.
Okay. How much time did you spend together during the course of the cruise? And when I say together, you and your husband and she and her husband.
For the first 3 nights, it was just for dinner, and once or twice, I think we went out for a snack. The last night, we had dinner, and then Andrea suggested cookies afterwards, because Rusty likes cookies. So we went to the place to have cookies, dessert. Then we separated for like maybe 5 minutes to kind of change out of heels or whatever. We went to a show. Then we went dancing at the nightclub. And then we kind of all hung out. It was like maybe 4 in the morning when we went our own ways. And then the next morning we had breakfast, spent the day together. It was the disembarking day. Then we shared a cab and went to dinner at the airport and then separated.
Okay. Do you recall the exact dates of this cruise?
It was over Veterans Day weekend. I want to say it was like the 12th through the 16th, but I could be off on my days. It was 3 years ago.
Did you have an opportunity to observe during that particular period of time the interaction between Mrs. Sneiderman and her husband, Rusty?
I did.
Can you describe that interaction that you observed for the benefit of the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please?
It was very loving. They were talking, having a good time together. When we were dancing, my husband doesn't dance. Rusty came up and danced with us, and then he would go back and sit with my husband and chat, and then type of thing. It was just very, very married.
Did they appear to be affectionate?
Yes.
Did you notice any tension between the two of them?
Not one bit, sir.
In their company, did you notice them arguing with one another?
No, sir.
Did either one of them give each other the silent treatment?
No, sir.
Okay. You indicated that did the ship come back to Miami?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you got off the ship, did you still have contact with them sometime after the ship had docked?
Andrea and I became Facebook friends, and then we all decided to share a cab to the airport. And then we rode the cab and then had dinner at the Chili's at the Miami-Dade airport, Fort Lauderdale, I think.
So how much time would you estimate you spent with them as a couple altogether?
Dinner every night, and then the whole last day, like almost a 24-hour period, the whole last day, but then dinner every night. We would stay late after dinner and just all chat and hang out. They were fun to hang out with.
Okay. Typically at dinner, how long would you hang out together or remain at the table?
Oh, gosh, I want to say we were there for almost 2.5 to 3 hours every night.
Okay. Did they seem happy with each other?
Yes, sir.
Did you, one moment, please.
You may. We're back on the record. Ms.
You
Carter.
said you became Facebook friends with Andrea at some point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At some point, did you receive a communication from some sort of law enforcement agency in Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall when that would have been?
It was almost December or January.
When you say December or January?
December 2010 or January 2011.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
I'm sorry. It was right after everything had come out, and they called me and asked me just some quick information about Andrea and Rusty having been murdered. And they asked me specifically, you know, how did they interact together? And I told them they were very loving, very married. The whole bit. I did explain to him the story that Rusty told us the first night at dinner about someone...
Your Honor, did you say?
Sorry.
I did not anticipate her making that statement, Your Honor, so I will... Is that, let me just ask a question. Was that to explain, were you offering that story for the purpose of explaining the nature of the relationship between Rusty and Andrea?
I was offering what I told the, he said he worked for the prosecuting attorney. I was telling you what I told the prosecuting attorney.
Okay. When you told that story to the prosecuting attorney, were you telling a story as related by Rusty for the purpose of explaining the nature of their relationship?
Yes, he said that...
Okay, well, hold on a second. There's been an objection, so I don't know if the judge is going to allow you to say that. Given...
Is there an objection? I didn't hear it. I don't hear anything.
Objection to hearsay, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to sustain that objection.
Okay.
Okay.
After that particular phone conversation, did you ever have any subsequent communication with the office of the district attorney in DeKalb County, Georgia?
No, sir, they called me once.
Okay. Were you called as a witness by the prosecution in the case of the state of Georgia versus Hemi Newman?
No, sir.
Nothing further.
Ms. Cross, I believe this is your witness.
It is, Your Honor, thank you.
You may.
Ms. Trump, so I'm clear, before the cruise, you'd never met Andrea Sneiderman?
No, ma'am.
And you'd never met Rusty Sneiderman?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and the cruise was how long, how many days?
4 days?
4 days. And during those 4 days, you were getting scuba instruction?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right?
Mhm.
How much of your time on the cruise did your scuba instruction take?
For the first 2 days, it was classroom time from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m.
And during that 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. time, did you have any contact with Andrea?
Jeff Hellinger back with attorney B.J. Pak. We've lost the audio right now, so I thought maybe we would jump in here until the audio is back and operational. This is a woman who befriended the Sneidermans on a cruise ship.
Yeah, it's a continuation of the theme of showing or demonstrating that they were a loving couple.
Let me ask you this question. I mean, a lot of people have friends in their lives. Many of these friends really don't have a portal, if you will, if you pardon the pun, as it relates to the cruise ship here, into people's personal lives. I mean, you know people at a certain face value, but you really can't say that you know what goes on in their marriage or their family or any other dynamic that is deeply personal.
Well, if you see them together in a often enough, certainly I believe that people could pick up some signs, whether or not there might be some trouble in paradise. But once again, Ms. Citron's testimony, who is her best friend, by the way, is very powerful and also very insightful. So as a result, the defense is trying to negate that.
Flipper Kisses off of Twitter has just sent me a note that said, hey, stop talking over the live court. We can't hear what's going on. Well, right now we don't have any audio, so we are sort of jumping on board here to pass time through the silence. Do we have any audio yet? Nope. We still don't have any. So Flipper Kisses, you are somewhere in Texas. We apologize for talking over the court scene right now, but unfortunately we do not have any audio as to what is going on. So until we get that audio restored, we will continue to talk. Now we have a law enforcement official taking the witness stand.
Called by the defense.
So the defense continues with its parade of witnesses. So are we getting a little more audio now? Let's see here. Nope, we still do not have any audio. We are working on it and trying to get an answer for you inside the courtroom. J. Tom Morgan now is representing the defense. It is his line of questioning for this law enforcement official. J. Tom Morgan, the former district attorney of DeKalb County, knows a little something about talking to law enforcement. He has based a large part of his career upon that. So the last break that we took was around 3 o'clock this afternoon. So we probably will have another break, and this could go until about 5:30 today. That's how it seemingly has been going for most of these days. We're still trying to get audio recovered for you right now, but right now silence is the word of the moment. Take a look at the parents, the Greenbergs. We have heard from Mrs. Greenberg on the stand. To the right of Mrs. Greenberg is her brother, Andrea's uncle, who has made the trek down from Philadelphia. And there are friends of the Sneiderman in the benches behind them. All right, so we still do not have any audio, we remind you, and we apologize. We're trying to get a sense of what's going on in the courtroom. The problem with the audio is coming out of the courtroom. It is not our issue outside of the courtroom, nor is it part of this. The audio problem is inside the courtroom right now. So here we go.
That she appeared to, or it had appeared to be the first time that she heard that Rusty had been shot.
No further questions.
Yes, cross the intuition.
Investigator Potter, did you have subsequent conversations with Ms. Formato?
Yes, I did.
Tell the jury, please, about your subsequent conversations with Ms. Formato.
In prepping the Henry Newman trial case for trial, I took the former prosecutor, John Geary, out to the daycare to re-interview all the witnesses and speak with them regarding what they remembered. And Ms. Formato made it very clear then that she misunderstood what I was saying, and it's probably my fault. But I assumed that Sergeant Cordelino told her.
Tell the jurors specifically, what did Ms. Formato tell you when you re-interviewed her after the case note that Mr. Morgan referred to?
She said that she had no recollection of anyone saying the word shot, cheating, or anything with regard to that, be it Sergeant Cordelino or anyone else. And she maintained that up till about a month ago, maybe.
And that was just the last time you spoke with her?
Yes, ma'am.
And each time subsequent to the first interview with Ms. Formato, was that her statement when she spoke with you?
Absolutely. She's been consistent about that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Potter.
Mr. Morgan.
Just a couple follow-ups.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Regarding the subsequent conversations.
No, sir, I did not.
So there's no handwritten of that?
No, sir.
You did pair a handwritten case note as to what she said originally?
Yes, sir. Those meetings, that meeting prior to Henry's trial, I had the prosecutor with me, and I didn't take notes during that.
So the only record we have is your original case note from May 31st?
And what I'm telling you now, yes, sir.
That's all. Thank you.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Lawyers, may this witness come down and be released from the subpoena, Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Crossstream, all right, you can come on down, have a good day, drive safely. All right, next witness. Yes, sir, come on up, lawyers. Yes, sir, come on up.
Jeff Hullinger again with BJ Pak, and just a note here is I've gotten a number of emails saying, hey, get a new sound man if you guys are responsible for it. We are not. All of that comes out of the court, so we have no control over that. We are merely carrying the audio and the video that is coming out of the courtroom, and we are streaming it on 11alive.com and our digital channel, 11.2. BJ, I have a comment here from Twitter that is an interesting one in this sense. This is from Tess, who says, okay, so they were married, somewhat married, totally married. This woman from the cruise knew Andrea Sneiderman for 4 days. That seems desperate to me.
It does seem kind of strange that you would actually call people who've known them for such a short period of time. And certainly that goes to the weight of the evidence in terms of how much you should give credibility to that.
And right now the session between the judge and the lawyers now, this is the third one of these we have seen in the last couple of minutes.
It looks like they're going over the witness list on the defense list. Of course, they filed a very lengthy one, and they do have the option to call anybody that they listed there. I don't think they're going to call everybody, but we didn't hear what the testimony was with the law enforcement agent. That seemed to be pretty short.
Is
for one point.
is this for the judge for scheduling purposes for the remainder of the week, or is it more than that?
Well, I think it's in addition to scheduling. I think they're talking about maybe what the potential scope of testimony would be for certain witnesses. Given in light of the judge's ruling, certainly they may want to approach the judge and ask about or give him a heads up on what another witness might come up. So they're making the record. So, for example, if they say they're going to call witness A, who's going to testify similarly to someone whose testimony was excluded, certainly he's going to rule similarly. So in order to put that on the record for appeal, should there be a conviction in this case, they're actually making the record, and the court reporter is going to be writing it down.
This has been a very long day of witnesses on the stand today. It began with Rabbi Hirsch Mankiewicz, and it continues now with law enforcement. And our time right now, Eastern time, is coming up on 3:25. So the attorneys back to their places, and here's Judge Adams.